So, morning everybody. It's bright and breezy today, beginning of a new year, 2021, a big year for everybody, I hope, a positive year. We're going to kick it off actually this year with our episode number 5 in our Building Blocks podcast series. And this one's about equality, diversity and inclusion in construction. And today I've got some great guests. Today I've got Ella Sanders from F&G, Faithful and Gould, Dara Jafari, again from F&G, Jenny Hind, who is one of the owners of a company called The Clear Company, and we have Amos Simbo, who he started and sort of organises what we call the Black Professionals in Construction company. And I've actually already been on a panel with Amos before, actually, so I do know him. So we're going to talk a little bit about equality, diversity, and inclusion. But first of all, I'll just ask all of my guests just to, in a few words, just to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their companies. So I'll start from my left to right. So it'll be Jenny.
Thanks, Gerard. So yeah, as Gerard said, I'm Jenny Hind. I'm a director at The Clear Company. So we do all things around diversity and inclusion, looking at it through a very holistic view, and we work extensively in the construction and infrastructure sectors. I personally have a background in the infrastructure sector. I've been working in this area since 2005, I think. So yeah, got the t-shirt.
Great. Ella, do you want to tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Ella Sanders. I'm a Client Development Manager within Faithful and Gould, and I'm also our Deputy ED&I Lead. So my role is really in trying to foster a culture within Faithful and Gould for inclusivity and diversity. So it's my aim.
That's great. Thank you, Ella. And Dara?
Hi there. Yes, I'm Dara Jafari. Also work for Faithful and Gould. I'm Associate Director of the newly appointed Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Lead for Faithful and Gould as well. And as Ella said, we're trying to make some real changes, obviously, within our business and within, well, the industry itself, hopefully. So really excited to be here. Thank you.
And last but not least, Amos, so tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Amos Simbo. Background is engineering. I've been in construction now for about 9-10 years. Predominantly in the commercial fit-out sector, and started off Black Professionals in Construction in September 2019. It's been going strong, and we're really, making great steps with the whole industry. So really excited for this.
Great. So that's a great panel. So I thought I'd just put a couple of facts out there for everybody, really, just to set some context, really. We all know that there's probably not enough equality, diversity and inclusion in our industry. Just 1 in 8 construction workers, for example, are women. I will actually just sort of chuck in here that Pagabo, 1/3 of our staff are women. Social Profit Calculator, another one of our companies, women outnumber us 2 to 1, and Cyprus just under half. So I think we're doing quite a reasonable job in that. But it's something that certainly needs to change. And at the end of 2018, there were just over 5% workers were BAME, so Black, Asian and minority ethnic workers in our sector. So they're just a couple of facts that we just need to have in our minds when we talk about this topic today, really. So let's just start really then with the first question, and I'll start with Amos. Actually, we'll go in reverse order now. Just tell me, Amos, been in the industry 19 years, a little bit about your experience of EDI and how you feel it's been and where it was and where it's going.
Yeah, I personally, I think it's progressed. I was slightly, when you made the introduction to this session, it just took me back a little bit when you said EDI and construction, and I was like, I just never thought I would actually hear that, So it just struck me for whatever reason. So I actually think the fact that we're even talking about it, is a really, it might sound really bad, but the fact that it's actually something that is being taken seriously, and by that what I mean is there's a lot of things that get spoken about in the industry, but they don't get taken seriously. You just think, it's one of those, I think quite a few years ago, if somebody would have come and spoken to you about mental health, you'd have just thought it's for a toolbox talk, and you just don't really want to know. Or if some toolbox talks that you have on site, we all know no one is taking them seriously. You know, that's what I mean by people actually then actually say, you know what, I'm taking this seriously. It just used to be a tick box exercise, but I feel like gradually, you know, through different means, it's starting to be something that people are taking seriously. But my journey personally has been, you know, my experiences in the industry has been really, really good in terms of it's almost been revealing. I wasn't aware of our industry at all. You know, when I came in the industry, I was more like on the engineering side, you know, engines and all that sort of stuff. Um, and then when I came in the industry, I actually saw, you know, the amount of opportunities that are there. But the first thing that I thought was, how come I didn't know about this? So, you know, that whole, people might think, you know, EDI is from one on a perspective of, oh, we want things to be equal, but it's actually people's opportunities in life, you know, things that can actually change people's life. It's literally about, you know, just because you know in somebody else's shoes, you might not realize what people just don't know. So for me, the journey is actually, I think the industry as a whole, the fact that we're talking about it here, the fact that I'm here, is going in a good direction, you know, for everybody, and it's about taking everybody along with us.
Okay, so I mean that's a great opening, and I like the way you sort of set that up actually, Amos, with the point about, you know, the fact that we're talking about it, you know, and why shouldn't we be? You know, that's exactly, it's right. You know, I've actually got 2 daughters, so for me, I've lived in around, you know, females in business, and they're at the age where they're working as well. So it's just normal to me to have equality. So Ella, just build a little bit on Amos's points there. Give us it from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't been in the industry very long, and for me, I wanted to work within the industry since I was in school, and it was kind of discouraged actually when I was in school, going to an all-girls school, which is kind of transverse of what you might think, I suppose, because obviously it's not, you know, usually a career for a woman in inverted commas. And I'd just like to echo what Amos is saying there, that for me, I'd actually, since that time, since coming into my career, I haven't really felt like I've, you know, been ever on the peripheral of anything. But certainly, I've noticed, even in the 3 years that I've been post-grad, that I am seeing it coming much more to the forefront of the conversation. And it's now not just that people are willing to talk about it, it's that people are kind of almost getting a bit tired of talking about it. They want to see tangible action, and people are willing to take tangible action. And for me, I think when we're seeing other industries just go far and above what currently the construction industry is doing, we're looking at them and we're thinking, okay, you know, it can be done. There is no need to stay entrenched in this way of working. And I think that's really creating a shift for our industry. And I think it's really, really exciting to be part of. And it's, you know, kind of the driver for me to be sitting here today.
So that's a good point. So all girls school, you know, and that's, as you said, the reverse of that. Dara, you know, just building again on probably what Ella said there. Are you seeing that shift? Have you seen that shift? I mean, in your career, do you feel we're on that journey now?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important when we're talking about construction as well, that we identify that there's definitely 2 clear parts of construction, isn't there? We've got professionals, and then we've got site-based work, and I think the cultures are very different, and both of them need to, you know, have vast improvements made. But there has been, in terms of equality, diversity, inclusion. I mean, thinking about back when I was in university, we had about 90 people on the course of the construction umbrella, probably only about 6 or 7 females. But now you look at, you know, females coming through into construction professions, it's a lot more. So it's almost doubled, I think, which is great. But yeah, growing up, I didn't really even hear the term ED&I mentioned, and I worked for some fairly big companies actually, and there were at times that I felt a little bit on the periphery because I perhaps didn't. Well, I'm from a Middle Eastern background, and I perhaps didn't do some of the things that they would be doing, the other senior members of staff, like playing golf or going hunting or something. This is a traditional firm I worked for. But now, you know, I think more industries are embracing the fact that, you know, you have to have people from different demographics, and it's the right thing to do. And as Amos said, it's people's lives, you know, these equal opportunities, and it's really, really important. So I'm glad we're talking about it now.
Great. I mean, the only hunting I do is hunting for orders. So I'm not really interested in doing that. So So Jenny, so you're I know doing some work with F&G. So, you know, tell us a little bit, because you're obviously working in quality diversity, not just in construction, but I think in other areas as well. So, how do you think we're doing as an industry compared, you know, if on a scorecard against others?
It's a really interesting question, Gerard, and as always, you know, it's multi-layered, so there's no straightforward answer to that one. So I think, you know, just to echo what others have said, there's a real pull now within the construction sector to really move forwards on ED&I, and I think what's really powerful around that is that pull is coming from people who work within the sector, as well as from big clients. So you've got the HS2s, you've got the Heathrows, you know, who are really pushing this agenda and having, you know, being much more demanding, quite rightly, in their supply chain in terms of how they manage ED&I. So I think what you're seeing is some real progress, particularly in some of the larger organisations who are now saying, actually, I don't want to be client driven on this. I want, you know, we as an organisation have, you know, a much more aspirational vision around that. And I think that's really, really powerful. But I think we need to remember that within that, you've got lots of small organisations who perhaps aren't on the journey yet. And I think that's an area that the sector really needs to focus on. But when we compare to, you know, other sectors, you know, it's on the agenda, it's moving forwards, it's not as progressive as, you know, as some of the, you know, perhaps some of the financial services or big consultancy type sectors, but equally there's lots of sectors that are lagging behind as well. So I think we sometimes can beat ourselves up in the construction sector when actually progress has been made, but it does take time.
Do you think just on that point, I mean, Dara, you know, quite rightly sort of separated the sort of off-site services and the on-site services. Would you say there is a difference between, you know, people who are working on-site being more sort of male-dominated possibly, and in the office-based pre-construction consultancy? Have you seen that?
Absolutely. I think it's really important that when we talk about ED&I, you know, we don't just talk about the diversity, the demographics element of it, that we talk about the inclusion element of it as well. And I think even the terminology, you know, blue collar and white collar, I hate that terminology, and it's still very, very common, and that is divisive in itself. So, you know, if we look at even things like terms and conditions of employment, you know, you've still got lots of people who are weekly paid, lots of people who don't get the same holiday entitlement as those who are, you know, in the more site office, you know, office-based roles. So I think we have to really take a really, you know, hard look at the sector and question how inclusive are we as well as how diverse are we. That's really important.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I mean, you know, there's still this vocabulary that is not sort of helping, I guess. So okay. So you talked about some of the large companies there and some of the large projects. But you know, you started Black professionals in construction, Amos. Have you had any interaction with the government? What do you think they're doing? Are they helping? Are they hindering? Are they doing anything?
Yeah, no, we've had a good reception so far. And yeah, just to quickly touch on like Jenny's last point, you know, like most of my life in construction, I've been on site, yeah, I think as an industry culture, there's just that detachment between being on site and in the office. So you sort of see the people in the office is probably just do nothing, right? They're just in the office, and we're the ones actually, you know, doing. It's more of a cultural thing, you know. So it's more like people get approached differently, I guess. But it's an interesting one, the point you're making, Jenny, in terms of, you know, how things are different. And that just sound, you know, it is sometimes in construction, but yeah, from our perspective, Gerard, we've had really good traction. We've worked with the likes of the Department of Business, like Jenny was saying, the likes of HS2s, GLA, and you know, all the industry bodies, so British Property Federation, CBI, all that sort of stuff. And I feel like the conversation should be more. So what happens these days is, you know, I say to somebody, I don't know, like, you know, your jacket is not clean. And then they go, well, but your glasses are not clean either, right? These days, it's not, but we haven't solved any. We just created two problems, right? People are just about, you know, it's more of a game these days, you know. So that means you've got a dirty jacket, I've got dirty glasses, and we just sort of happy because I just responded to you, people don't really want to actually say, hang on a minute, let's talk to kind of find a solution, you know. And for us, that's the approach we've been taking. It's not necessarily about, because these days it's all about finger pointing. You know, if someone digs your eye, you have to kind of dig them like more, and they just dug you, and then you always just keep digging, right? So for us, the approach we've just been taking is, you know, how can we better assist? How can we better help? In some institutions, you found out that, you know, people were more like, you know, kind of not scared, but a bit like shying away from, you know, trying to talk because they don't want to get in trouble. Like, well, what's, you know, people are not talking because they don't want to get in trouble, not because they don't want to solve an issue, you know. Because sometimes all these barriers we put, like, we kind of punish each other for saying the wrong thing, you know, when sometimes people have good intent, you know, and it's not what it's actually meant. So our approach has just been open to say, how can we better help? You know,
Yeah.
can we be that voice? Can we assist? So the reception has been really good. I mean, I'm talking from our experience, right? As much
Yeah.
as, you know, other people have got their own experience with the industry. From our perspective, so far, I can't really say, you know, there's been anything negative. It's all been positive.
Okay. So just on the point about the government then, Dara, regulations, our building regulations, do they reflect what we're talking about? Bids, are they being reflected? So are the questions you're being asked as a company when you actually put a bid in? Do we think there is a move to change the sort of vocabulary, which will obviously have an impact if we do that? Are you seeing that?
I mean, in terms of vocabulary, I wouldn't say there's a push too much from central government. No, I do think that's very much like companies, etc., and, you know, different industries perhaps leading the way in that. In terms of building regulations are just a minimum requirement. So when you're talking about inclusivity, like Jenny said, for example, accessibility, building regulations and British standards are a minimum requirement. And still, what's really encouraging is many clients that we're working with, we're actually saying, you know, you don't just want the minimum, you want to be best in class, don't you? You want to be setting the pace, making your building completely inclusive by design at the very start of a project. I do think central government is a little bit lagging behind, but it is good that they've set minimum requirements. But in terms of bids, etc., so the new initiative that came out, well, you're probably aware of it anyway, Jared, but the new initiative central government are saying the weighting of social value, for example, being 10%. Again, it's a minimum. We are seeing some clients actually come and ask us for higher than that. But, you know, like with all of these things, I think what's lacking sometimes is the information. You know, what are the clients, what's central government looking for when they're saying, you know, when councils are putting bids forward and they want social value weighted at this amount? What are their key drivers? You know, sometimes I think it's not fully understood, and it's probably an area that's very embryonic and it's, you know, kind of forming and growing.
I think you're right. I mean, obviously, I understand the social value piece, procuring for value, the sort of PPNs that came out from beginning of this year. I like your point about the sort of minimum standards. It's a bit like minimum pay or minimum wage and living wage, isn't it? You know, I don't think anybody wants to advertise they're doing the minimum wage. They're trying to promote living wage because that's what it's about. Yeah, and that should be the same, as you say, in all of aspects, because equality, diversity, and inclusion, as you say, it's about access for disabled people. It's about it's about sexuality. It's about everything really. So that whole sort of piece, it's not just sort of pigeonholed inside that. Ella, you know, you're fairly new to the industry, as you said. So do you feel you're in an environment where the clients, which is very, you know, quite a lot of it's public sector clients, do you feel they're on the right page?
Yeah, for sure. Over the past year or so, I've seen I do a lot of bidding. That is one of my primary things I do within my job role. And I've seen it go from I'm getting one client asking to have us respond to what we do in terms of our business for ED&I, to it being on every other bid, it being on near all of our public sector bids. and they don't just want to know that we're compliant. So previously it was things like, do you have a policy? Are you compliant with the Equality Act? They want to know genuinely, what are we doing? What are we trying to implement to improve our culture? And then how can they learn from us to improve their own culture? I think there's a real shift to this, it being a drive for interdependent leadership. People really want to learn from each other, and clients, I feel, recognise that we have something to offer them just as much as they have something to offer us. A point I would like to make is that around the vocabulary coming from central government, I'm sure I'm sure all of us will have listened to Liz Truss's speech that was made just before Christmas, and I think that there's definitely a change that central government are trying to make around the conversation that we have in ED&I. I personally am not sure that that is a positive change that's being made. I think obviously time will tell how that's going to shape the conversation that happens and that trickle down from central government, but they are clearly trying to make a shift in the way we approach this. And I think that is going to have a knock-on effect to how companies and how our clients want us to respond. And I think that we will definitely see a ripple there. And Liz Truss definitely is trying to, you know, shake things up, I think.
Yeah, I think I mean, every marathon starts with a first step, doesn't it? You know, that's how you do it. I mean, I'm of an age where I've seen bidding for some and tenders for probably a lot longer than you have, Ellen. So I remember the days when it was, have you got this policy? Tick. Have you got that policy? Tick. Have you got that one? And all right, they've passed all the policy stuff. You know, quality, diversity, environmental, and I think it's a lot better. I mean, you know, as a procurement organisation at Pagabo, we actually are well above 10% in all of our sort of requirements, and the questions are now a lot more sophisticated, and I think that's quite important. Jenny, just I want to pick up on something you're doing, because you know you've been working quite closely with F&G about this sort of EDI and moments pack. What do you want to tell us a little bit about that? What's that about, and how is that working or going to work this year?
So we've been working with F&G as part of Atkins around developing the overall ED&I strategy, looking forward for the next 3 to 5 years. And so we've done a lot of work. What's been really powerful about this approach has been that we've been listening to what people within the organisation have been saying. So we've literally had inputs through interviews, through focus groups, through a survey that had thousands of responses that allowed us to really bring the voice of the people into what that new strategy looks like. So it will be published, you know, really soon. So that's really exciting. And what that really does is, you know, it's really ambitious about, you know, shifting the organisation into a different space from an ED&I perspective, and really being, you know, a voice for change, which is really powerful. Yeah.
Is that something, just as out of interest, can you share with our subscribers? You know, would you,
so I would love to, but it's going to the OLT for approval at the end of the month.
All right, okay, that's fine. So at the moment it's okay. So at the moment it's top secret, but when it's been approved, then it'll be great. I'm sure F&G will tell everybody about it, and Atkins obviously will tell everybody about it. So okay. So look, so it's been, you know, really interesting sort of conversation on this. So I just want to sort of sum up a little bit, and obviously, you know, you've mentioned your EDI work you're doing, which is fantastic. Amos, you know, you give yourself a plug if you want. Where can people find more about BPIC? You know, what's the website?
Yeah, for us, bpicnetwork.com. You can find us there. And if you want to drop us a line, drop us at info@bpicnetwork.com.
Yeah.
I'm always on social media. Well, not I'm always on social media. I was about to deny it for a minute. But you know, you can always get in touch. Usually just a phone call, an email. It's a chat, isn't it? To actually progressively get there. But yeah, on social media, on the web, on our website, we're all over bpnetwork.com.
Okay, so I think we're going to publish links and some information about this. And Jenny, when you're ready, please feel free to engage with us, and we'll try and amplify anything you're allowed to amplify as well. So, Okay, so just to wrap up from everybody, then, we've talked about what's going on, what's happened with the context where we've been, but give me the top 3 things very quickly that you think we should be considering this year and onwards, which cover EDI, but also for the industry generally. So I'll start with Dara.
I thought you'd come to me first, but what I was thinking of is really interesting. It was actually Jenny when you were talking, and we were mentioning about how Atkins and F&G and all these sister companies that form part of Atkins, are employing a company like Clear Company to actually develop their ED&I strategy. I think is a really, really good way of setting a precedent, because if you're sort of saying, our senior management team doesn't have enough diversity, why would you then leave the senior management team to come up with a diversity and inclusion strategy? So I think it's really important that CEOs of other companies that are, listen to this, or managers, etc., shouldn't be ashamed to seek help to develop a strategy. I think it's a really, really good thing, and it should be implored. So to me, that's my top thing.
Okay, that's great. No, I get that. We do it in lots of other areas, don't we? If we haven't got the skills to do X, Y, or Z, we employ the skills, don't we? There's nothing. That's exactly what you do if you improve your business. So, Ella, what's your top tip for this year? Or
I have two. My first one is that we need to focus on having productive actions rather than performative actions, and that's really making sure that we're not ticking boxes. Things aren't about ticking boxes. It's about making sure that we're backing things up with a culture change, which is obviously a lot harder, which is why performative things often get done over productive. And then my second thing is that I really one of my key aims is for working cross industry, so not just looking at the construction industry, but taking learnings from others and making sure that we're bringing that into the fold, especially for F&G. I think that if we don't do that, we're missing a trick. This isn't just about construction. I know that's what we're talking about today, but this is a plight that faces the whole world, and it is an international thing that we can all learn from.
Okay, so outcome and not process, evidence by impact assessment. So that's what the management book says anyway. Amos, come on, what's your top tip?
My top tip is around leadership. I think to speak to leaders, to say be leaders. Like a lot of people at the top these days like shy away. Leadership now is taking more about you making the company profits and just making sure you deliver projects at the end of the year. But leadership is a lot more than that. It's actually leading from the front, isn't it? So it's not about what does the book say? Well, leaders are put there to actually lead, to actually make those decisions that perhaps some people haven't really grasped. Some people are still like on the journey to go to. So it's kind of like say, okay, this is what taking a stand. So if the leaders say we're gonna do EDI, and this is what we want to promote, be like everything around the sort of EDI perspective, not to then sort of palm it on to somebody else, or sort of shy away from it or hide behind a statement. Just come out and actually say, yes, I stand for this. Be sort of crystal clear exactly what you're standing for, and not to be so to be scared to sort of be shut down, or to, being a leader and being in that position is a lot more than just a paycheck, or just saying I've made this much profits, we've done it. Being a leader is everything, around all this. You leading people in the organization and the whole organization itself, and that goes down to decisions as well. So if there's leaders coming in like in place, if that's what you want to do, put your company towards EDI, actually do it. Actually stick up for it. When they're having sessions or whatever in your company, don't look for the best excuse to say, oh, do it when I'm in Paris, or when you're not around. Make the best effort to actually be around and be seen, and your colleagues to see you. So for me, that's the biggest, because I honestly feel like these days there's so many things you can hide behind. It's like we've gotten so much clever in in sort of, you know, dropping our shoulder all the time. And like, so it's so it's so easy these days. You know, when someone get asked something on TV about what are we doing about X, you know, they come up with a clever answer for not answering it. just answer it. You know, so I feel like leaders, don't drop your shoulder, just face it. For me, that's the top tip for this year.
Okay.
You know, for leaders to be leaders.
Leadership, and that's a great one. I mean, I can't agree with you more on that. I mean, the leaders are there to set the culture, the tone, and everything in the organisation. That's what they're there. And there's a difference between leadership and management. You know, it's quite a different sort of set of skills. So, last but not least, Jenny, you've had a nice plug from Dara there. So, you know, you might be getting calls.
That would be brilliant.
That's what Dara's sort of saying. But look, you know, you've got a different perspective in terms. You've got a wider perspective. So can you just give us your top tip or top 2 tips?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start a bit broader and start talking about COVID. So I think we all have to be eyes wide open that COVID and the impact of this pandemic has massively exacerbated inequalities in our society, and the construction business is going to be one of the few sectors that continues to grow over the next, you know, few years, when lots of sectors have been really battered. So I think the construction sector needs to pull together to be part of that COVID recovery and to really help those communities that have been most affected. So that would be my first one. I'm going to touch very briefly on inclusive design, and I'm going to do this through an example. So 2,300 NHS hospitals roughly in the UK, 60 of them have a change in places facility, which enables people who need hoists and changing tables to be able to toilet in a public space. That's not okay, and that's one tiny example of a huge issue. And then I'm going to finish on authentic change, which I know Ella touched on. So construction sector needs to be brave, they need to collaborate, they need to support suppliers and SMEs to make the change that's needed, and they really, you know, we need to see a real shift now in terms of the ambition of the sector to move forwards.
I think that's, I mean, look, that's a great sort of sum up. I mean, you mentioned something there, the whole coronavirus. It has disproportionately affected people, and I think we are, you know, we are quite lucky that we do work in this industry, because if you worked in hospitality or other industries at the moment, it'd be very, very tough, as we know. So we do have a, a requirement to remember that and acknowledge it and sort of help where we can. So I think that's great. So look, absolutely fantastic. Great points from everybody. I just want to say thank you very much to my guests today, Ella Sanders, Dara Jafari, Jenny Hind, and Amos Simbo. You'll be able to find them when you log on to our podcast. This is episode number 5. So therefore episode number 6 will be coming soon. We'll be organising that for us. But when you see it, please amplify it, share the messages. You know, we've had some great topics today, and the leadership point, you know, they're doing something, they're getting on with things, that they're all great points that my guests have sort of raised today. So just to say, you know, a prosperous, a successful and a safe new year to everybody. And hopefully we can start to get out of this towards Easter, and we can carry on sort of delivering what we want to do. So thank you to my guests today, my colleagues, and a good new year to everybody. Thank you.